Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Sharp Weekly. And in this video, I'm going to show you that how you can create a SwiftUI application which is integrated, which is using a JSON API to perform CRUD operations. CRUD means create, read, update, and delete. We're going to take a very simple example, like a to-do list, a very simple to-do list, and we are going to build our server also. So we have many choices for building our server. You can use Vapor, you can use Node, you can use ASP.NET, Web APIs, you can use PHP, you can use Django. I'm going to use Express and Node because I'm very comfortable with Node and Express. And I also, as an iOS developer, you should also invest and investigate your time into learning about other frameworks like Node and Express. So let's go ahead and get started. The easiest way to host your Node and Express application is by using a service called Glitch. So you can always go to glitch.com. You will have to sign up, and now you can create a new project using the New Project button. Let's create a new project, and you'll see there are many different options to create a new project. I'm just going to select Glitch Hello Node. Now it's going to create a project, and that project is already hosted. Now, one of the things you will notice about this project when this project is created is that it is not using Express, which I want to use. It is using something called Fastify. Now, I've never really worked with Fastify. I'm sure it's great, but I don't want to use Fastify. I want to use Express. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove part of this code. Let's go ahead and remove most of this over here. And we'll just remove everything. All right. They don't really have a template to create an Express application. They used to, but now they have removed it. All right. So the first thing we need to do is to install package for Express. So I'm just going to go to package.json and hit the button to add a package. And I will simply go ahead and say Express. So here's our Express package. Just click on it. That's a good thing that when you click on it, it's already installed. And you can see all of in your dependency that you have installed Express. Now let's go to our server.js and we will go ahead and start typing some code. This is all JavaScript code. So if you're not familiar with JavaScript, not to worry. If you're familiar with Swift, it's kind of like, JavaScript is kind of like Swift. Swift is kind of like C#. C# is kind of like JavaScript. All of them are pretty similar. So once you learn one programming language, you can simply jump on to and learn other programming languages. All right. So basically, I am saying that whatever this is exporting, I'm going to get handled to that. I'm going to create an instance of the Express. And now I have many different functions to perform the requests, like get and post and put and patch and delete. I'm going to go ahead and run my server on 8080. And once the server is running, I'm just going to put something on the console. And this will say server is running. Now, just to get started, I do want to create a hello route just to see that it is running or not. So it means that if I go to /hello, I'm going to get access to the request and response. And the response I want to send is I'm going to send hello world. All right. Okay. Now I can go ahead and change the URL. And you can see that this is my main URL. This is kind of like my main or the base URL that I have. But I want to go to hello. So I'm going to type over here hello. And as soon as I type in hello, it actually executes it. And you can see that it is sending out hello. So this means this route is actually working. And this is how easy it is to create your server. Now, in our case, we don't really want to send string hello. We want to send JSON, right? So how do we do that? And we are building a to-do list app. So I'm going to go ahead and also create an array called to-dos. So we're not really using any database or anything like that. And I'm also going to initialize the to-do list with some to-do items, kind of like hard coding it. Mow the lawn, and I will say priority is actually high. I do have to mow the lawn. And then we have title for, let's say, feed the rabbit. And priority, I just fed the rabbit, so I'm just going to say medium. And then we have title, another one, we can say clean the car. And let's say priority is low, and so on. All right. So I have an array of 3 objects. Each object has 2 properties, title and priority. And I want to send that back to as JSON. So I can create a brand new route, and I can say to-dos, request and response. And the easy part is, and the good part is that if you want to send something back as JSON, you can simply say response.json function and pass in that particular object that you want to send. So this means that if you go to the base URL /todos, I should get the to-dos as an array of JSON. Let's change the URL, and we'll change it to to-dos. And now you can see that it is sending you back JSON. Pretty cool, right? I mean, it's really, really cool that how quickly we can create our server. So this part is kind of done. And I always like to start with something that is hard-coded. I've hard-coded this array of to-dos, and I'm simply sending this back to the client in the form of JSON. Now, our next step would be to go to the client and try to display this. Once we get it to be displayed, then we can work on something that we can add a new to-do list item, we can delete an item, we should be able to update an item, and things like that. But for now, we want to go ahead and make sure that we can display all of these items in our SwiftUI application. So here is our SwiftUI application. You can see it's a basic SwiftUI app. No code has been written, nothing has been done. The first thing we need to do is to create a service, an HTTP client, that is going to allow you to fetch all of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and I will call it web service. I'm using Xcode 13, but I'm not going to use any features of iOS 15, although you can use async and await and all that stuff. I think my deployment target is still set to, or the iOS target is still set to iOS 14 point something. So I'm going to create a web service. And in this web service, we can have, let's say, load or get all to-dos. All right. And in order to get all to-dos, we need some sort of a URL. So somebody is going to pass in the URL. And we are going to get a completion handler, because this is an async event that we're trying to do. We will get access to the to-do, and we will also get access to a network error, meaning that we can either return the to-do or the network error, and we're not going to return anything else. This is a closure that doesn't return anything. Now, there is no such thing as to-do. There is no such thing as network error. Let's deal with the network error first. Network error is nothing more than an enum which inherits from the error. We can have different kind of errors. We can have invalid URL, I guess. We can throw that part. But the URLs, in our case, it can really be invalid, as you're going to see that. Decoding error can be another one. In our case, it can be a bad request also, and so on. All right. Now we can go back and create another folder, another group for to-dos. So, and we will call it models. These models are actually the DTO models. So this means that this is the object that we're going to create, a structure that we're going to create that is going to allow us to map the data that we're receiving from JSON. So I'm just going to call it to-do. And we're going to create a structure, to-do. We're going to make sure that this is codable so that it can be decoded and also encoded. And we are also going to make sure that we have a particular priority, title and priority. All right? And I'm just making it simple so that the priority is a string. All right. And that's it. Now we can go back to our web service. Let's go ahead and first build it. Okay, build is successful. That's great. Somebody is going to be sending in the URL. That is also fine. Now we can perform a URL session.share.data task with the URL. We already have the URL, so we can kind of like pass it. And we can pass in a completion handler. We will get the data. We will get the response. We will get the error. And also make sure to call resume, or else your request is not going to go through. We will unwrap the data. We will make sure that the error is actually nil. And we will also make sure that the response is HTTP URL response, and the status code that you're receiving is actually 200. If you are not getting that, then something probably bad has happened, and we can throw like a bad request or something. So network error.bad request. Well, not like that, but because we have to do completion with a failure with the bad request. Something bad has happened, can't really move on. Let's go ahead and mark this with escaping, because we are actually assigning it. Perfect. And now we hopefully have the data, so we can decode the data. So we can say JSON decoder.decode the data to the model that we have created, todo.self. But there's a problem over here. The data that we are getting returned from the web service or from the API is an array of those objects. So we need to decode it to an array. So simply go ahead and add an array, and that will be decoded to an array of to-do items, because the properties in the to-do items are matching whatever we are sending it from the JSON, from the API. Data is data, that's fine. And we are going to get to-dos items, I guess, in this case. All right. The result over here needs also to be modified because we are sending an array of to-dos. So we're going to just change that to an array. And now I can fire in a completion handler. And I will say, well, go ahead and send in to-dos or send in empty. But it has to be inside a success. So make sure that you add success. We're going to send in to-dos or we're going to send in empty, whichever one. So this is a null cosecant operator, and this is basically saying that if the left side is not null, then go ahead and send, then use that value, or else use the right hand value. All right, so that looks fine. Now we need to create view models. The model that we have created is a DTO object. It's the object that will be populated when the data comes from JSON, from the API. This is a model that we cannot really bind to our interface. It's not going to be a good idea to do that because we may have to massage it. We may have to change the properties of this. We may not want to expose the whole DTO object on our screen. So it's always a good idea to create view models if you are following that particular pattern. So here we go, view models. This view model will be responsible for displaying the list of all the to-do items. So I'm going to say to-do list view model. So this is going to be controlling the entire screen, which will display the to-do items. And there can be hundreds of to-do items. To-do list view model. This will be an observable object. Okay. And this one will have a particular function, to-do list view model, which is representing and providing the data to a screen that will display all the items. So this will have a particular function. I will call it populate to-do items or populate to-dos, whatever you want to call it. I will say populate to-dos. All right. Okay. Now over here, we can go ahead and call the web service. So web service.getAllTodos, and we can pass in the URL. We don't really have the URL to pass in anything, right? So for that, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new group. I will call it utilities. And URL is just going to be a constant for our case. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a new file called constants. And now I can say probably constants structure. And in that structure, I can create another, which is URLs. And now I can say static let, and what's the URL? What are we trying to get? Well, it's basically, we're getting all the to-dos, right? So we can say all to-dos URL. It's up to you. URL, string, some sort of a value, and we can force unwrap it because we are going to pass in a valid URL. There is no chance that this is going to break. Let's get the URL. This is the URL to get all the to-dos. Make sure that you write the correct URL, to-dos. And now we should be able to throw in that value right over here. So we can say constants dot URLs dot all to-dos URL, and we will get some sort of a result back over here, which will be a result enum. We can perform a switch on the result, and we can have a case for the success. We will get all the to-dos. We can display them, and we can also talk about the failure where we will get the error, and we can go ahead and display the error also. Okay, so that's your to-do list view model. Let's go ahead and first check out that are we even able to print out the to-dos, because if we cannot print out the to-dos, there's no point in doing anything. I mean, we need to fix that. So I'm going to go copy this and go to my content view, which is going to display all the items. State object, so we can get notifications, although we are not really throwing any notification from there. We will say to-do list view model, which will be a to-do list view model. That's fine. And on appear, for now, we're just going to go ahead and call to-do list view model dot populate to-dos. All right. It's not going to populate anything on the screen. We're just trying to see, can we put it on the output window? Let's go ahead and run the app. Now, keep in mind that whenever you're using the free account for Glitch, it does take a little bit of time for it to kind of warm up. So usually it's always a good idea that before performing or before running your application, you should go to Glitch and make that request manually, just by typing in the URL, or if you are doing a post request, just to wake it up. All right. And looking over here on our console, this is a good sign because now we can see that we are able to get the data. You can see the title, mow the lawn, feed the rabbit, clean the car. So all of these things we are able to get. That's great. But we still need to display them on the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now let's go ahead and work on how to display all the to-do items on our screen. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my to-do list view model. And you can see right here that when we get the to-dos, and we are getting it because we just displayed them, we don't really do anything with them. We just print it out and that's it. So what we want to do is to have something like a view model that is populating with using these to-dos, and that view model can then be displayed on the screen. Now I can create a view model right over here or in a different file, but over here should be okay. So I'm going to just say to-do view model, or you can say to-do item view model. That's perfectly fine also. To-do item view model. All right. And we will go ahead and make sure that you need to pass in a to-do, a DTO object, to create this particular item. All right. I will also have init over here, and that will be to-do self.todo equals to-do. And I will make sure that this is kind of like a private, so you can't really create an instance, or you can't really access it anywhere outside of it. Okay, so in order to create a to-do item view model, you need to pass in a to-do model object or DTO object. And now we can go ahead and expose different properties if we want to. So I can say to-do.title. So you can see that these are the property names that will be available to your view. Now I can change this property if I want to. I can change the value that I'm returning. I can go ahead and return it in capital letters. And that is the flexibility that you're going to get when you are implementing the MVVM pattern. This is the only part that the view will know about. Priority, string, and to-do.priority. Simple. Okay. And to-do list view model will now have access to an array of to-do item view model. To-do item simply means one single to-do item. So I'm just going to go ahead and create over here a publish property, var to-do items, which is an array of, which we can simply say to-do item view model. All right. And now we need to somehow convert this to-dos into to-do item view model array. So let me go ahead and do that over here. I will say to-dos dot map, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass in to-do item view model dot init, and this is going to return us to-do items, which will be basically be to-do item view model. And I will have to put a self over here. Another thing I have to do is I need to make sure that this is set on the main queue, because it is marked with publish property. So I'll simply wrap this in dispatch queue.main.async, and that will make sure that this particular property, which is to-do items, is actually set on the main queue. All right, so now we can move to our content view and try to display these things. So I'm going to go ahead and remove most of this stuff. Let's put a navigation view, because eventually we do want to do any navigation part. I'll put a vstack list to-do item view model dot to-do items. And we can't really do that because if you go back to the to-do item over here, it does not conform to identifiable. So let's go ahead and say identifiable. And that is going to allow us to create an ID so that it can be displayed easily in our list. All right, so now we can go back over here. We will get a to-do item in, and let's see that if this works. I'm just going to say to-do item, that's a single to-do item dot title. Let's build this, try to run it. And let's see what's going on. Oh, we didn't really call that thing, right? So make sure that we call on appear and to-do list view model dot populate to-dos. There we go. Isn't that cool that we were able to display all the different to-do list items right there? All right. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so a couple of things we can improve over here. We can add a navigation title, and we can just say to-dos or whatever you want to say. Okay. Now, this particular video is already getting super long, but at least we have learned how to create the server side and return all the items and then display all the items. So what I want to do is to divide this into multiple videos. So in this video, you learn about the read part of it, meaning you have a particular server, which somewhere it went, here it is, and you are simply trying to consume whatever the server is returning. But we still have to learn that how we can add to the server. I mean, this is a hard-coded array. how we can add a new to-do list item. So we still have to learn all of that stuff. So what I'll do is I'll post this video, and in the future, I will post the video for updating. I will post the video for deleting, and also obviously for adding. But this is going to be a good start, and I would recommend that you type out all the code. All right, so type out everything, type out the server. You can see the code for the server. Go to glitch.com, create a server in Node or whichever language that you want, and then use it and consume it in your application. We are going to cover all the create, read, update, and delete, but since this video is getting a little bit longer, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it into 4 videos so we can learn a little bit more better, and you can jump around into different things. All right, so hope you like it. If you like it, make sure to press the like button and also share it. You can also subscribe to the channel so that whenever I post a video, you will get a notification. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, if you love this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out my courses on Udemy. You can see here that I have a lot of different courses on Udemy, ranging from SwiftUI to MVVM Design Pattern to Combine, RX Swift, UIKit, React, Redux, a lot more. You can check out my brand new course on SwiftUI Cookbook, which contains over 100 recipes for building iOS application. All the links to the courses are right there in your description. You can see I have also courses on core data and advanced Swift async and await, which is a new feature in iOS 15, MVVM Design Pattern, and React, and so much more. So check out the links in the YouTube description. Thank you so much for your continuous support.